Aerospace Research Operations is an organization that's domiciled in Virginia and registered with the State Corporation Commission. Also known by the acronym Aero Ops, which is a scientific research cooperative that's focused on unidentified anomalous phenomena and the associated high strangeness and paranormal effects that typically result after an encounter. Hi, I'm Richard Lang, and we're on the second part of our first episode about the drones and the UAPs. And with me tonight is John and Jerry Tedesco. They're part of our aerospace research operations team. They're both engineers. These guys are really brilliant. Their full bios are on our website, which you can check out at Aero Ops. They've built this incredible vehicle that they call the Nightcrawler. And there's like about $1 million worth of equipment, not really, but there's a lot of equipment in there that they have for surveying things that might happen, and they'll probably give you a better specific idea than I can. But what we wanted to start with was in part one, we interviewed Joe DiEduardo. He had gone out in New Jersey and was able to observe, I don't want to call it a drone, but there was some kind of a UAP or anomalous phenomena. And just to kind of review that real quick, basically they hiked about 1.5 miles into the woods in a pretty dense, deserted area. They used glow sticks to mark their return trip from where they were dropped off, but they were about 1.5 miles in a really dense forest. And I think part of the thing there was they were concerned that if there was some anomalous activity there, the GPS and the compasses might not work, and if they need to get out of there quickly, they could find their way back by the lighted glow sticks that were tied to trees. The equipment they had, it was a tri-field meter and also an iPhone 13 camera. They observed, basically they observed 3 anomalous crafts at close proximity within 75 to 100 yards. When initially the crafts, when they observed them, they were moving slowly towards them. The only sound they could hear was a humming sound. And what they were able to see with their eyes was elongated rectangular shaped craft that had like a dark metallic surface to it. He described it was kind of shaped like a shoebox, and it was about the size of a car, an automobile. The sides were all flat. There were lights, multicolored lights in the green and yellow spectrum, and there were also some strobe lights in the middle. The lights were on the back end and the front end, and the strobes were kind of in the middle of it. And they tried to photograph it with the iPhone, and the camera wouldn't focus. It just kept going in and out of focus. He thought that was because of the stroboscopic effect, and we can talk about that. And then one of the things he observed is there were 3 of them, and whenever they move or rotate, they were synchronized. They would all rotate the same way at the same time and all that. He did experience some physiological effects. At one point, one of them got within about 75 feet of him. He had his tri-field meter on. It was set in the magnetic range. And when the thing came over and got close to them, he said it just pegged the meter. And he could feel a sensation on his face, like a tingling sensation. And it sort of felt like he had gotten, like if he'd been out and got a really bad sunburn or something like that. So that's kind of, that's kind of how that all rolled out. And I asked John and Jerry to take a look at that video, but I think they have. And I just want to get their thoughts on what they were thinking about it.
Yeah. First I want to say, Richard, that we're, happy to be part of Aero Ops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
we feel the same.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
And yes, we did take a look at that video.
I thought it was fascinating. There was actually similarities to an encounter we had, which we could talk about later.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. Yeah.
Which occurred in August of 2022, early on in our research. It was the second month of our research when we had that encounter. But a lot of similarities between the two.
The craft, you mean the way you described the craft?
Yes, exactly.
Was your observation at night or day?
This was at night. It was actually about 12:15 midnight.
Were you watching it with your eyes, or were you watching through infrared or
we had starlight? We had to. The only way we could see it is through our infrared cameras. We couldn't see it visually. Right. It was completely invisible to naked eye.
Yeah.
Other than invisible, but it was very bright. It was extremely luminous in the infrared cameras.
Right. And the first opportunity we had to see that was on our central monitor, within the RV, within the lab. You know, it's an infrared camera. It's a little bit deeper. It goes into low ends of the shortwave infrared.
Right.
But it was, you know, you couldn't miss it. It would, you know, there was it was like, looked like a scalene triangle, in the display. And, it was extremely bright in the infrared. Nothing we could see with our eyes, which was very unusual. You know,
How far
we
away do you
walked
think it
outside.
was from you?
It was roughly, we believe it was roughly somewhere around 1,300 meters
Yeah.
from where we were eyeballing it. And it was
It's pretty close to the shoreline.
right. And that's basically, you know, we had done some triangulation, of course, with the some of the lights that we had. We had you know, a visible torch light with a spot beam on it. We had an IR torch as well.
Mhm.
And the ranges of them are, one is 14 to 1,500 meters, and the other one's 13. So we basically, by using the two of them, we were able to give at least some kind of a distance based on reflection.
Cool. Did you recognize it being like elongated rectangle like that? Did you see any of that?
The first time that I saw it as an elongated rectangle was a luminous side to the object. There was like I said, there was a triangular formation of these orbs, and one in particular had moved transversed actually in front of the triangle, and it moved from the right to left field of view as we were watching the triangle. But in my camera, in Lunar Optics night vision camera, I had the rangefinder going, and the rangefinder flashes. It sends out a beam every 1 second. So
It works on a laser, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a 940 nanometer laser, which is in the infrared. And when that laser had hit this object, it reflected back as a rectangular form, a rectangular
Gotcha.
reflection, and almost like a lensing effect, almost like a lenticular lens that if you shine the light into, you can
Mhm.
see that, like a car lens, you could see that it takes on the shape of the lens. So what we did is, when I had that rangefinder going, I could see this rectangular form, and it was an elongated rectangle. But it seemed to be centralized within the orb.
Well, see, the thing, like he said that his phone wouldn't focus on it,
Yes.
and we've talked about that too. You have your theories about that, but you've experienced that where camera equipment won't focus. You've
Right.
even had some of your stuff where it actually went in and screwed your cameras up.
Yes.
Right. And firsthand, and that night we also had problems with the batteries, the lithium batteries within the cameras. They discharge very quickly. They
That's
wouldn't
really
overcharge.
common, yeah. But then later they work.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yes.
destroy them usually, it just discharges them, and
Yeah.
then you can charge them and use them again. Yeah.
Right. They
That's
become
really common.
depolarized. The batteries become depolarized for some reason.
And we've had that several times out there,
Yeah.
especially when these objects were out.
Right. And of course, along with some other, issues with the camera electronics, that we had that night, where the recordings were intermittent, and some of the data and the macro settings and the memory data was corrupted, and that's,
Almost like some kind of intelligence force got it.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And under the influence of some electromagnetic field as well, which I find, when I was in the service business, when I was repairing cameras, which is something I did before engineering, a lot of these failures, similar failures, we'd find with, after an electrical storm.
Mhm.
We would have these transients, these electromagnetic bursts from lightning, and there's enough charge in the air to basically reset those locations in memory.
Yeah, that makes me think, I worked on this case, where, how they were talking about when recently in Ross Coulthard's shows where they're talking about these guys, where they were recovering craft and stuff. And one of them was, they call it an 8 triangle, and it's basically an 8-sided vehicle. It looks, if you look at it from the top, it looks like a pizza that's had 8 slices cut. You know what I'm saying? And they all fit together. Well, this case that we had, it was the guy's out in his backyard real late at night, and this thing comes over his property, and it's real big. And there's a lightning storm going. It's a storm going when it's there. And when the lightning would flash, he drew a picture of it. It looked just like what they're saying. It's like an 8-sided object, and each one it's composed of 8 little pizza-sized shaped slice components. You see what I'm saying? Like they're all together. But when the lightning would flash, he said you could see the lightning come through the cracks of the slices. In other words, it was like 8 separate things that were connected together, but they weren't completely, there was a gap enough that the lightning would come through it. You could see, like when the lightning was flash, you could see the gap where the 8 slices were, if you will.
Yeah, so there's some internal energy source, I guess,
or else that there were 8 pieces that were connected and they weren't totally tight to connected. Something.
Yep.
That's interesting because we have seen objects that look like they would conjugate together, and some would fly in a binary formation to be fixed together. There was one we videotaped an object merging with some other object.
It comes like 3 of them turn into one kind of thing.
Yeah, and we were thinking about it, considered that the possibility maybe they can interconnect,
the ability to cohese. And merge. Which we've seen quite a few times, or separate. These objects would separate.
There's like a organized network.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing when he was talking about those 3, the 3 vehicles, when they would rotate, they would all rotate. They were all synchronized.
That was okay. So that was
and that was similar. That's very similar to
key similarity.
Yeah. We saw this triangular formation in the shape of a scalene triangle, but the orbs themselves, the corners of it, when they rotate, they would rotate. It's synchronous
synchronously.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So they're coordinated. They're whoever's control them. It's the same. Probably the same.
Yeah, definitely some communication.
They're all synchronized together, which is really, really interesting. Right. And then the other thing is he talked about when he said it was about 75 yards away from him. These things are like at treetop altitude. And he said that he had one of these, that it's hard to see it, the tri-field meters.
Yes.
And he said when that thing came close to them, it just started going off it pegged the meter. But he said then he could feel like a tingling sensation in his face.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he said he felt like he was getting a sunburn or something.
Right. And that's something that, we've had some experience with, and we've had, other folks that have approached us with, that they're in close proximity with these objects.
Right.
And there seems to be some kind of possibly a UVC type radiation emanating from the object. UVC is a very narrow region of electromagnetic radiation that's in the ultraviolet light version. And it's generally between 185 and about 260 nanometers. And
it still set the meter off on the magnetic side.
Yes, and there's probably a field that's associated with that, which maybe some kind of some gravity or something along those lines, or gravity force that's in that there is a combination of components, that may be working in consortium with the field itself.
Well, I mean that's common. A lot of cases. I know with Richard, the case you went across, like these. I remember the Val Johnson case, the Sheriff Val Johnson case. And I think it was Missouri, I think. And it was back in '79 where he encountered an object on a isolated highway, on a desert highway. And he was doing a patrol, and he actually thought it was a small airplane crash. And he approached it. He saw lights. As he was hovering over the road.
Right.
As he approached it, it shot forward towards his vehicle. He says the last thing he remembers as it would approach his windshield at an alarming speed. He says he heard cracking and glass breaking.
And then they have the car, and it was all the glass broke, and the antennas are all bent and stuff. Yeah.
I think that's a great case because we actually have physical evidence that was preserved.
That car is still somewhere in a museum, but I mean,
I would love to. I would actually love to
take a
look at it.
It said like the antennas were bent, like they were melted.
They've done sharp angles. And the interesting about those antennas is is those sometimes when you try to on those old cars, when you try to bend them,
Yeah.
they would fold in the middle and break.
Or
Yeah,
break,
I
they're
mean,
kind of brittle, yeah. They
you
wouldn't
couldn't
easily
you
be
couldn't
bent like
exactly
that.
take them and bend them at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
These were actually, they were formed
Yeah,
almost.
they maintain that
It's like
the
somebody
concentric.
melted them and moved them, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we're kind of suspecting that there may be eddy current forces behind this. Where you have something called it's a combination of an electromagnetic field and a Lorentz force, and it's the Lorentz force that is doing the bending, that's doing the physical changes to the metal, especially aluminum. Aluminum would contour to the Lorentz force, and it would bend in the direction of movement. If the object was moved over his roof, it would have bent in that contour without breaking.
That's consistent the way you described it. An object moving towards the car, passing over his car would have bent the antennas as
Right,
it's
right,
generating
right.
this
Yeah.
Lorentz
At the
force.
general 90-degree angle, but
Yeah.
without breaking the antenna. But it's also there was also some other attributes to the case too, where he say he complained about sunburn, or as he had
As he had flash
can't-
burns to his
flash
eyes.
burns to his eyes, which was
Yeah.
indicative of possibly UV.
Ultraviolet,
The
Ultraviolet.
most
Of the
common
plasma.
injury in UFO cases or UAP cases is eye injuries.
Mhm.
People from the light, they get sore eyes and stuff.
Right, right.
That makes sense because the other people talk about the intensity of the light, whether it's the intensity of light or the ultraviolet radiation given
Yep.
off by a
Yep.
plasma.
Yeah,
Right.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and UVC would do there's much more surface burning that goes on there, so the eyes would be very susceptible to that, very sensitive to that. Even under short durations, short duty cycles. You'd have this field would basically burn the outer layer of the eye.
So the
Skin,
tinted
it's not so
windshield and
deep.
glasses would help too with that, I'm sure.
Yes.
That tends to block all that stuff. Now, I don't know if we knew that if you had a window open or something along those lines, that you could have had focused energy inside the car, and in a case like that, it would have been reflective characteristics would have made it much more intense.
Well, there's been cases
Off
where
the
orb
glass.
comes right through the car, comes right in the
Right.
windshield, goes through the guy's shoulder and out the back.
Right.
I wanted you guys to talk about the Nightcrawler a little bit. We can see they're in there. You guys are in there now, aren't
Yes.
you? Yeah, and they've just tell us a little bit. I know that I read your book, and you guys got like a fortune of equipment in there that you've assembled. But just tell us about some of the cameras and the sensors that you use in there that are.
Sure. I'll start it out and then John can explain it. We actually had two incarnations of the Nightcrawler. We had one which was a bottom-up design, which we built the unit and put it on top of a bed of a truck.
Shell. Yeah.
And
So now what do we have? This is the newest one, right?
The newest one, yeah. That's the C-class RV.
And so you guys
And-
got that set up so it's like a Faraday cage inside.
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
if you closed all the doors and there's shutters, if you close the shutters over the front part of the cab or the windshield, you couldn't use your cell phone in here. It would
Oh,
kill
really?
the signal.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So it's,
by the same token, they can't get you in there if they're trying to.
yeah, exactly.
You have some level of safety.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and then you have I know you've got some radar. You've got radar equipment in there.
Yes. So we have two types of radar. They're
Okay, yeah.
marine-based radar systems. They're X-band radars. They're 3-centimeter beams, and we have them in two different geometries. We have a horizontal, which is typically what you see on the boats, where you do a 360-degree scan around you, and that has a 5.2-degree angle.
So that'd be like the radar
that's-
on a ship or something where they're looking for
Exactly.
the weather
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
That's the typical X-band radars, but they use for weather detail, weather data, and
Well,
also
in the
close
airplanes,
proximities.
they have a little, and there's a screen in there, and it's like a forward-looking radar, so you can
Yes.
Yes.
fly
Yeah, that's
around
that pulse.
thunderstorm cells and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that pulse mode. This is using the a rotating scanner. Which has a 5.2-degree beam length.
So does it
takes about
rotate on the
2.
top of the graph?
Yes. Yep.
And it's turning all the time, so you're getting a
Yeah.
sweep.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So it's rotating within a radome antenna. And then you have a vertical scan. We've taken that same radar system as a completely separate system, and we've mounted it vertically.
But move your
And-
hand over so I can see it. You're out of the
Yeah. So it's like this. It's the horizontal, the X band, and then the Y band, the vertical scan. So that radar is mounted where the radome antenna is this way. It's
Okay.
actually scanning up into the atmosphere.
So
And
then
then
you
it
have,
hits.
is that directional? You have to point it in a direction?
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
in the
that was
direction.
more directional.
That's
Yeah.
in the direction of where the RV is placed. Now we also motorize that where you can actually change the direction of scan, on the vertical.
Gotcha.
But what we wanted was at 4 miles out, you have literally a 4 mile swath of area that you can scan, and it'll go out a total of about 20 miles,
And it's
it'll
scanning vertically up and down.
exactly. And it's a
Gotcha.
165-degree scan through a reflective base. So this way that energy is not going down inside the RV.
So if you're out
reflected back.
somewhere and you see something out over the water, you can point that at that direction, basically.
Yes.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the benefit of having the vertical radars, it gives us a lot more elevation.
You can tell
So
the
we
altitude and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we get a decent profile if an object is crossing our path perpendicular, like an airliner. You could see that you have a large surface reflection of the fuselage, so you get a nice return when this is
Yep.
vertically scanning. So, and we can pick up objects that are up 80,000 feet into the atmosphere. So it goes
That'll
out
work
quite a
for
ways.
purposes of what we're doing, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's limited as far as forward and reverse range. We're limited to about 20 miles. But if an object is transversing us and it's right above us at a zenith or something near that, we could easily go up 80,000 feet, to pick that up.
Okay. And then tell me about the cameras. You got different kind of cameras too.
So we have the RV has 4 permanent cameras that are at each quadrant. There's one in the front, one in the back, passenger and driver's side. They're all night vision cameras. Then we have a PTZ camera, which is in the front, where we can pan and tilt. It's got a 36 times optical zoom.
Gotcha.
The IR cut filter is removed completely. We took those IR filters out of there. So we extend the range to about 1050 nanometers. So that's within the near infrared and then part of the shortwave infrared as well.
What I wanted to, just for the people that don't really have a good handle on the technology
Right.
here, as far as these cameras are concerned, there's the way I visualize, there's really 2 types. One type, basically is a super low lux camera that can see
Yes.
very, very small amounts of light. And they call them starlight cameras and stuff like
Yes.
that. And the other one is a camera that picks up infrared imaging. It picks up heat signatures, basically.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So those technologies are incorporated. Sony actually makes a lot of those image sensors, that are sensitive to extremely low light. You're talking about something that's under a lux, 1 lux.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like lighting a candle and, at 20 feet away and being able to see that in the darkest conditions, a small flame that this thing will pick up.
And so they're basically, you've got a little bit of ambient light out there, even on a dark night. You've got a little bit of
Exactly.
starlight and stuff, and that's what those things work on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you
Um,
got to get a combination. Most
like
cameras
the-
will pick up infrared, but the starboard
Those-
sensors are much more sensitive.
that Psionic, they had an advertisement where they were on a boat and they had the camera mounted out on outside on the railing in front, in the front of the boat.
Yes.
Right.
And the guy's got it Bluetooth to his computer, and it's dark. And they're pulling in a harbor, and when you look at that computer screen, it looked like daylight. You could see it. It's like
Yeah,
amazing how it works.
Yeah, that's the benefit of it. And so you get your military grade, night vision goggles and night vision cameras so you can actually see this stuff in color.
And then you also probably have audio too, right? So if something, you
Yes.
can record sound too. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
you've got
audio
this. This is a pretty nice little package over there that you've got.
Yeah, it is
And,
quite
there's an image up on the screen right now that they can see what it looks like and everything. But
Okay, good.
so the last thing I want to ask you guys about is, Dr. Taylor was up there a couple months ago, and we were all on a Zoom call and in talking about this. But you all had a pretty interesting experience one night, and I'd love it if you just tell me about that, where you saw the thing out over the ocean, and then it kind of got a little predatory and came
Yeah,
out.
sure.
Tell them about that. I'd love
Yeah.
that.
Okay. I'll start off.
It was early in the investigation too.
Yeah, this is August 27th into 28th. It was we got there about 11. We got to Robert Moses State Park, which is a barrier island off the southern coast of Long Island. There's a
So
long
you're
bridge
on the
that goes
water, or
out to.
close to the water, right? The beach.
Yeah, and
Okay.
this is quite a bit of ways from the mainland of Long Island. There's a long bridge that goes out to it called the Robert Moses Causeway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this is nice because it's isolated
And it's the furthest point south on the island, too,
Yeah.
with the barrier island.
yeah. So we went out there. We got there about 11 o'clock at night. We have a permit, so we're allowed to be there all night long to research, and the public is restricted past
Right.
any.
And they do use that area for stargazers simply because it's dark. There's
Okay.
very little light pollution out there.
You know, there's
So
another
they give
benefit.
you a
Yeah.
permit where you've got your exclusive use of the place, and the people
Yes.
can
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
come as
overnight.
curiosity
Yeah, we managed-
seekers, and okay.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
managed to
that's
get a research permit. So we got there about 11 o'clock at night. We started setting up our equipment. It takes us about an hour to set up our equipment. We had two other researchers with us, Donald DiEduardo, who's a private investigator, and we had another researcher who during the day works as a nurse.
Okay.
We have other researchers, but these particular two researchers were able to go out
Yeah,
with us
so
that
there
night.
was 4 of us that night.
Yeah, the 4 of us that night. So while we were setting up equipment, they were setting up the equipment on the outside on tripods. John and I were setting up the radar system. We're getting ready to turn the radar system on and get the equipment up and running inside the RV. We have a central monitor that's in the front of the RV and just above the windshield, a large central monitor. And this is connected to a PTZ camera in the front that also looks into the IR. We noticed,
And it's infrared. It's an
and it's
infrared camera.
infrared, yeah. So we noticed when we looked up at the central monitor, we noticed these 3 orbs of light that were sitting offshore. They looked like they were hovering over the water and just sitting fixed in a fixed position offshore.
Right.
We said, and that caught us by surprise. So we took some portable equipment and we went down to the beach to get a closer look while the other
Right.
team members were setting up.
Right. We took 2 night vision cameras. Yeah.
So this occurred at about we noticed about 12 o'clock as we were setting up. We got there at 11. We noticed about 12 o'clock. We noticed it on the central monitor. So we went down to the beach. We looked at it with the portable cameras.
So now you're out of the vehicle and you're on foot.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and what we did is, of course, the other 2 members that were outside setting up the equipment never noticed it because it's not in the visible light.
Right.
You can't see it. So
Okay.
when we walked outside, once we saw it on the central monitor, we said to them, "There's a triangle out there, and can any of you guys see it?" They said, "No, it's we don't see anything. We don't hear anything."
But it
But
was
it
showing
was-
up on your cameras on the.
But it was showing
Yes.
up on the central monitor and the portable night vision cameras that we had on us. We went
Okay.
outside, we looked through the cameras. You could see it clear as day. It was extremely bright too in the infrared.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we were watching this thing. It was fixed. There was 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts out there, and this thing stayed in a fixed position. It didn't budge, which was bizarre because
Was it
even a
cold or
helicopter-
warm out? Was it summertime?
It was cold.
It was pretty cold.
So we had made our way down to the beach line, and Gerald's camera, as he walked closer and closer to the water's edge, we noticed the color confetti, the noise level was increasing, both audio and video, and said something is amiss there, whether or not it was some kind of electromagnetic interference that was causing it, or something else, ionizing
Uh-huh.
possibility of ionizing radiation. So as we got toward the water's edge, I was looking through the lunar optics, and I said, I'm going to put my rangefinder on it, and I'm going to put my. It also has an infrared illuminator, so I turned on the illuminator, which goes out about 1,300 meters.
This is
And-
like a handheld rangefinder, right?
It's a part of the lunar optics.
It's
part of
integrated,
Okay.
integrated into the camera.
integrated within
Yeah.
the
So now
binocular.
you're projecting the laser for the reading, but it's also got an infrared whatever.
illuminator, right? So
Okay.
when I
That's
took
when
the-
I heard this before. I knew when you did that was when it was things were
yeah.
gonna go
So-
south on you. Yeah.
So I have this illuminator running, and I'm taking a binocular, and I'm moving the binocular back and forth to see if I can get a reflection from the object. And I got a reflection from the objects. They were reflecting, so I know they weren't that far away.
Yes.
It,
It was
didn't
within
like
that
it either,
distance.
did it?
No. And it's after about the 6th or 7th time of doing this, we got an immediate response. So what I was seeing the whole time as I moved that beam across the field of view, and we were reflecting on that one object that was in the front, I got a rectangular view of a light that looked like it was
Mhm.
it had some kind of reflective characteristic to it.
And this one looked like an object that dropped from below it. You had the three orbs, and then this other orb like object dropped
Right.
from below it. And that's when John
And
noticed the
yes.
rectangular feature.
Right, and that moved in the front of the triangle, and that's what I was focused on.
Yeah, yeah.
And after the seventh time of doing it, I could see this rectangular window of light that suddenly moved to the shore. And every time the rangefinder flashed, 3 seconds went by, it was on top of us. So
So
the
now it's
second
coming,
time,
it's closing in on you.
yes, I could see the second flash, and it was 3 times its size, and the rectangle.
Yeah,
And then the third time it flashed, there was just nothing but light.
yeah, so it crossed that
Overload.
it crossed that distance within 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
How far
So-
a distance would you say that was?
We figured about
1300
1,300
Yeah,
meters,
1,300 meters.
which I believe it comes out to was a 15. I think it's like 3,500 feet or something like that. A quarter mile. It
Mhm.
was a quarter mile.
Yeah.
And so it transversed that distance
Quick.
in a matter of 3 seconds. And the last thing I saw was this intense flashes of light, undulating light. And when I moved the binocular away from my eyes, I couldn't see anything.
Whoa.
It was-
So
it
it was there, but it wasn't in
Right.
the visual spectrum, right?
Nothing in the
No.
visual spectrum. So that at that point, I felt a level of panic. So
Really?
I,
Or you
so
Well,
I can just see you two are like, we got to get back to the van, like get the hell
That's
out of
a
here.
good-
when he yelled, it's all on video. John says, "We got, let's move." You know, as the thing came to the shoreline, I noticed a circular pattern of light on the water, and it looked like maybe there was something above us that was shining light down on the water. That's when I noticed that my camera wasn't picking up as it was coming toward the shore. But I noticed it then, and I said, "What's that light?" to John, and John says, "We got to get out." John said, "Get out of here!" He says, "Leave, run."
it's on top of us. I
Yeah,
think.
so it was on top of us. So we started to run.
Actually, no, I didn't get a chance to run.
But John,
I turned my waist to the left to get away from the water, and as I did that, I collapsed onto the sand. My legs just gave out, and I couldn't coordinate them. It's like the signal wasn't getting from my brain to my to my legs, my lower extremities, and I couldn't coordinate my legs to get them under me to pick myself up off the
So
sand.
you're laying on the sand right now. You're on the ground.
I'm laying off the sand. Everything from my waist down, I had no control over. And I had the binocular, and I would just periodically look up, and I would see this intense flashes of light,
It's right on
and-
top of you, right?
and nothing in the visible. And then Gerald says to me, "What's
Yeah,
wrong?"
yeah, because I heard him hit a thud on the ground.
He already
So-
started running
Yeah,
away.
so
from me.
I turned back. I went. I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I can't move." So I went to grab him, pull him up, and as he was starting to regain his strength, I started to run towards the RV. But I turned my camera out towards the water, and I saw that we were engulfed by this infrared light that looked like a wave.
And it was on the sand. It looked like a chevron pattern.
Yeah,
A large chevron pattern on the sand. But we're very quickly in a frame or two, you could see it grow.
yeah, it was a
vertically.
grown wave. Yeah,
That was the last thing we recorded in his camera.
And when we were engulfed by that light, then I collapsed on the sand. I lost muscle tone in my legs. I had, like John, I had no coordination. I had no muscle strength. I actually tried to pull myself by my arms to try to pull my lower body to drag it through the sand. And
it lasted roughly about 45
yeah,
seconds,
45 seconds.
but
So you're
during that
both like
time-
on the ground, kind of paralyzed, half paralyzed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would, and during that 45 seconds, we could hear the electronic clicking of the camera.
yeah. John's camera was clicking and making all
almost-
kinds of noises.
These artificial sounds where the electronics was being turned on and off, almost like somebody was manipulating it, or an electromagnetic field was interfering with it. But
So when you guys are laying on the ground, you guys be scared shitless, man.
yeah,
Yeah, it was. It was so startling.
startling.
A little bit of shock too. It's like
Probably, yeah, yeah.
you're trying to process what's happening to you, and at that moment it's hard to process as you just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're tossed between you thinking this is some kind of a vehicle that moved suddenly on top of us. We're saying, Are we going to get hit by this thing?
Our first impression was something flying towards us, or some kind of weapon.
Right, and or a weapon of some sort, and ultimately we believed it was some kind of possibly a threat assessment.
But later on, we didn't realize it then, but later on, we looked at the video footage. John's camera is still working intermittently, so is mine. But it recorded these flashes of light going on inside the optics, and it at one point it showed like a beam of light scanning back and forth in the optics, and then we saw a sphere of light in the optics,
Right,
that was moving around, but it looked like something might have got beyond the iris of the camera.
right.
But so now you guys are both laying on the ground, half paralyzed. Then how'd you get out of there? What happened?
So after about 45 seconds, we started to
We were
regain.
gaining strength, and we started heading towards the RV. We were still trying to pick up a camera to see where this thing was, and we did see occasionally see an orb in front of us on the camera. It moved outside the field of view, so we weren't quite sure where it was moving. It was moving quickly,
Right,
and so we were heading towards the RV, and of course we were still struggling with our legs. So we yelled. One of the researchers was a nurse. We yelled. We needed assistance. So they heard us. We arrived there at the RV,
and neither one of those two researchers saw anything. They didn't see any of that lighting. They didn't see any of that stuff where they, from their perspective.
Well, were they outside where
looking-
they could hear you two yelling or anything?
Yeah, they said they noticed our yelling. They said,
As we were
and
coming
when
back,
all the commotion was, and one of the researchers told them we knew you were in some kind of distress. So then they approached us as we were coming up.
What? So we couldn't talk because we were out of breath.
Yeah, we were out of breath, and we were, the stress levels were up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Did
yeah,
you
at that point?
did you? Is there a video of that?
Yes.
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 Can you send it to me? I'll put it on the website.
Sure.
Oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll put
Yeah.
it. We've got a little space, for this whole thing. I'll put the video of your little adventure on there. That'll be fun.
Right.
You can send
So
it.
what we did is we actually regained our composure, and the four of us went down there, back down to the beach.
Yeah, because it was still
We still saw the triangle. The triangle was still in the infrared, still same position. It didn't move. And we had all four of us went down there, and the other two researchers took their cameras also, and they can only see the size.
It was the same thing. They were pulling the night vision down. They said, "Oh, I can't." They couldn't see with their eyes. Put it up, and they saw these bright orbs of light in the eye, in the infrared.
And only this time I took down a 90,000 lumen torch, a visible torch with me. So when we went back down, I took that visible torch and I did the same thing.
Oh man,
I didn't learn my lesson the first time.
You didn't have enough. You didn't get enough the first time, right?
No, I said now it'll be all four of us this time.
Then it was that curiosity. Yeah, it just had to get something.
Yeah, we had to know. We had to know because we couldn't see it. We were seeing the IR energy, but we couldn't see the visible, no reflection, no nothing. So I said, let's see if we can get a reflection from this thing. So that's when I took the.
You mean after that happened, you were actually going to go back and mess with it?
Yeah,
some more?
it was a curiosity, an incredible curiosity. So, and as I move that torch in front of the object back and forth, I could light up those objects. I could light them up, and everybody at that point said, "Oh, I can see it."
And the other interesting thing is, every time we passed, we'd light up the three orbs.
When you said you could light it up, could you see it with your eyes, or did you have to see it through night vision?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
when the
okay.
light hit it, then we could see there was something there.
Right, because the minute I hit it with the torch, the other members said, "Oh, we can see."
Oh,
it.
yeah, now I can see
We
it.
can see the
When you say a
reflection.
torch, you're talking about a real high-powered infrared.
Yeah,
flashlight.
90,000 lumen flashlight.
Yeah, with a focus beam.
Yeah, it's a focus beam on it. So, and once we hit it, we could see the objects, and we recorded those objects, and then we actually have that all documented too. Is where you can see a structure inside some kind of an envelope. It looked like an envelope that was diffusing the beam. It was distorting the beam somewhat, and that beam would basically light up that field around it. But you could see something inside that looked like a polyhedron, a rotating polyhedron. And there's definitely a sphere around it that was four times the diameter of the inner polyhedron. So there was a field that stretched out four times.
The other interesting thing, there were other orbs were appearing around it. There was one that dropped out of the sky, which DiEduardo, other researcher, noticed the dropping. We moved the cameras that way, and we could see it stopped to the right field of view, then moved to the left field of view.
Right.
From east to west.
It was interesting. Once we got their attention, I think the first time, they almost like as if they wanted us to see them the second time because more of them were out there.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we were able
if
to
it
see
was a
them.
threat assessment, once they figured out you were harmless,
Right.
Yeah,
then
that's
they
it.
probably
Seems
weren't
like-
worried about it, you know.
Yeah. So one of these orbs had actually come inland further and then backed out again. You could see it.
Yeah, it
come
was.
in and
You
back
could see
out.
what kind of wobble it made this trek across laterally along the shoreline. It moved in a little closer to us and it backed off, and it did these dips. It looked like it was doing dips
It went
inside
into the water.
under the water and then coming back out of the water.
Yep.
And then it finally passed these where the triangles were to the left field of view and disappeared. Just something.
Then
disappeared.
something else.
Were you guys sick afterwards?
Yes.
We were for about 12 to 24 hours. We had extreme fatigue, and John had
Swollen. I believe it was lymph nodes under my armpits that were swollen.
yeah, and I had tender lymph nodes in my neck.
Yeah, and it didn't last. It lasted a couple hours, I guess. You know, not long. And there's just a fatigue after that. And
Yeah, I'd say 12 to 24 hours.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
Boy,
it
that
almost
was a
like though-
that was a hell of an evening, I bet.
Yeah,
It was a wild.
Yeah, I
Memorable,
didn't need to
wild
fix a
evening.
good stiff drink when I got home after that.
You hear me on the recording. I said, "Where's our triangle?" And that's when we saw this flash of red light, and we saw something go straight up.
Yeah,
You know,
and everything disappeared.
and again, this is all it's all recorded. You know,
Yep.
on our drive.
Yeah, well, listen, two things. One, I'd love to do this again some night. And the other thing is, if you send me a link to that video, I'll put it up on our website too. That'd be really cool to
Sure.
watch.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a little article on the website about this whole thing. But
Okay.
man, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. This was really
No
fun.
problem.
Oh, absolutely,
And
no problem.
it's really nice to have some people that are like so technically oriented that you can talk to about stuff and ask things, you know, that you guys really have your act together, man.
Thank you. We appreciate
Two
it.
brothers,
thank you.
both
Appreciate you
engineers,
saying.
brilliant guys, and you know, and they spent a fortune putting a Nightcrawler together. So that's
Well,
really cool that it's portable.
We're in the right organization.
We
Yeah,
tried
well,
to
we're
work
coming.
on
I'll
it.
definitely be down there to, you know, I'm not so
Absolutely.
sure
Yeah, we
now.
have, I mean,
I said
we have-
before I'd like to come down and do a night watch with you, but man, you
Oh,
guys,
absolutely.
you guys know how to stir them up. You know.
Absolutely. Well, like says, we have Keith Taylor comes out. He's been out pretty often now with us.
Yeah.
And he comes out and brings the pizza.
Okay, well, I'll bring pizza, no problem. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna sign off with you two, but I really appreciate you doing this, and
Oh, no problem.
can't wait
No
to
problem.
watch this this video when
Sure.
get it all done. Thanks again, guys.
All right.
Absolutely.
Have a good night. Rick.
Have a good
Please check out our website at AEROPS.site. You'll be able to find current posts, new information, and a list of advisory board members. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.